Hey, what's up? This Mosquito Spray. You're tuned into Mosquito Spray Boxing Breakdown. So as you can see on the picture, we are 1 week removed from the brilliant virtuoso performance put on by Terence Crawford out in Las Vegas, man. Moving up 2 weight classes to take on none other than fellow first ballot Hall of Famer, the king in the face of boxing, the 2-time and the current undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, and Saul Canelo Alvarez. Man, Crawford, you know what I'm saying, going into this fight, not a lot of people thought he had a chance, but yet and still he got in that ring, man, and put on a brilliant performance, separated himself basically from the whole sport of boxing. And as to where he stands, as the picture shows, as the ultimo hombre, the king of the hill, the new king of boxing, as he should be recognized as. But here we are yet again, man. The hating masses coming out the woodwork as usual. Oh, this is still not enough. Oh, we need to see more. Or if he really want to prove himself, he need to do this still. Oh, we still need to fight this guy. Oh, Canelo was washed. Oh, this was why he won. That was why he won. He cheated with this. He cheated with that. Still no credit, man. Still no credit. So, man, we're just going to simply go over this timeline of events and see how and why we are still here yet again, man. So, let's go on and get into this. All right, so now we're going to start out like this, man. And this whole timeline, by the way, is, through my eyes, you know what I'm saying, what I saw and what I experienced. So, the first night of note was March 30th, 2013. Terence Crawford was a late replacement on back in the HBO Boxing After Dark days. Shout out to HBO. And he took on Bradis Prescott, hard punching Colombian, you know what I'm saying? And the thing with a lot of these Colombian fighters, they would come over here to the US and they'd have these high knockout records, this record with high knockout ratios. And the litmus test would happen when they would come over here because, back home the competition wasn't as stiff, so it was an unknown whether or not they were scoring a lot of knockouts because of the competition or because they were real punchers. Some of these guys turned out to be real punchers, like Edison Miranda or the Jose Torres, I believe was a guy named that took Cotto, through a tough fight when he was at 40. But along those lines, Prescott turned out to be one of those guys. He was actually the first man to expose the chin of Amir Khan at 35. Gave him his first loss via knockout. And of course, the danger was there, man. And Crawford at the time was unknown to me. Like I said, this was my first time I ever put eyes on him, man. And, this young man, had Omaha on the back of his trunks. And he went out there, man. You could see he had a bit of a meanness to him, man. He showed defense, the switch hitting, the combinations. And that night, man, of course, after he got the victory, I told anybody that would listen to me, man, this young guy got something. And at that time, that's when, Adrian Broner was making his way through the division. So, it was most eyes were on him. But I said to anybody that would listen to me, Broner did not want this kind of work. And, boy, were we all in for something, man. But, yeah, Bradis Prescott was my first time seeing Terence Crawford fight live, man. And I was immediately impressed, man. Let's get to the next guy. All right, so the next night of note was March 1st of 2014. Terence Crawford traveled over to Glasgow, Scotland behind enemy lines and took on the then WBO champion at 135 in Ricky Burns and put on a dominant performance, man, and dethroned the champion via decision and, won his first title, which he said was his original goal as a professional. So he accomplished that goal, man, went over there and took on Ricky Burns. Of course, you got people that say, oh, Ricky Burns ain't much of nothing or whatever the case, but like I said, he was a WBO champion at 35. At that time, had a couple title defenses before Crawford got in with him, and then later went on to become a WBA champion at 140. Defended that title once or twice as well. So Ricky Burns had to have something about it to become a 2-division champion. So he was a pretty good champion, and Crawford went over there and dominated him in his hometown. So that was the first night of note as far as the rise of Terence Crawford, becoming the world champion and going on to do bigger and better things. But yeah, let's get to the next one. All right, so after gaining the title from Ricky Burns in his first title defense, Crawford came home to Omaha, Nebraska, and took on Yuriorkis Gamboa. Now in Gamboa, you got a former Olympic gold medalist who was also the former IBF champion at 126. and had made also made a name for herself at 30 and a little at 35 by winning, a couple of liquor store titles that we don't worry about on this channel. But the main thing was also Gamboa had been in the pound for pound discussion and being ranked as high as by one publication as high as number 7 on the list. So Gamboa had made a name for himself, and also word around the campfire is Crawford was not expected to win this fight. You know what I'm saying? They both came in with identical records, 23-0, 16 knockouts. And Gamboa had a bit of a layoff because he had signed with, if any of y'all remember, SMS Promotions, which was a promotional company owned by 50 Cent, when he had, him and Mayweather had that little fallout or whatever at the time. And so he kind of had been on the shelf for a little bit, but he came in there and took on Crawford, and it was seen as a tough fight for Crawford. And in the beginning of the fight, it did turn out to be a little tough. Crawford had some little rough moments, but again, he ended up, catching his rhythm, making his adjustments, and he ended up, stopping Gamboa in brutal fashion, man. And of course, you got to come. Some people that were like, hey, Gamboa was a little guy. He was, undersized. Crawford's supposed to beat him and all this, but again, Gamboa is not going to be a Olympic gold medalist or, a champion, in one division and then going across other divisions, putting on shows as well and not, belong in the ring with Terence Crawford. So that was a good win for Crawford. He stopped Gamboa, and he went on to the next, man, and let's get to that. All right, so after another title defense at 35, Crawford made the jump to 140, where he won the vacant WBO junior welterweight title by stopping Thomas Delorme. He made a couple of defenses of that title, and in his third fight, he had a unification bout with then WBC champion Victor Postol. Now, Postol was seen as a bit of a boogeyman at the time. That is kind of verified by the fact that instead of defending against him, one Danny Garcia dropped that belt and said he wanted to move to 47. So Postol was then, I believe, elevated to champion after, he had had a couple of fights that were seen as tough, prior to the Crawford fight, and he ended those fights in brutal fashion, one being against Selçuk Aydin, who was a naturally bigger man. He came down from 47 and made a bit of a name for himself at 40. And Postol stopped him with a vicious uppercut, I believe. And also, Lucas Matisse, who was seen at the time as the boogeyman, brutally knocking out cats left and right. Go watch his fight with John Molina, which was the fight of the year, I believe, the year prior. And then go see how he did Lamont Peterson and come back and talk to him. But Postol stopped Matisse on a knee. Postol, his record didn't have a lot of knockouts on it, but he had just recently got up with Freddie Roach as his trainer, and it made a big difference. And not too many guys were eager to get in with him, but of course Terence Crawford did. It was a unification bout. Crawford went out there, man, and moved and boxed and, counter Postol beautifully and dropped him a couple times en route to a dominant unanimous decision, man. And he became unified champion at 140. At this time, he gained the WBC title to put next to the WBO belt he already had. And of course, to this day, a lot of people want to downplay that victory because Postol wasn't a big name. But like I said, the things he had done prior to that in the weight division, to the guys he did it to, made him, be seen as who he was. And again, Danny Garcia didn't fight him, you know what I'm saying? But Crawford did. So that was another good victory that, of course, didn't get the credit. So let's get on to the next one. All right, so after a couple of title defenses of his unified titles, Crawford took on then WBA and IBF 140-pound champion Julius Indongo. Indongo, of course, was like some of Crawford's opponents, virtually unknown in many circles. Hardcore fans knew about him, but casuals did not. So, of course, his name was downplayed. But a couple of names on Indongo's resume, if you look up a guy named Edward Troyanovsky, he came in against Indongo 25-0, 22 knockouts. If you go up and down the resume, it's very respectable. Well, Indongo stopped him in the first round. And also, like I said, Ndongo was the WBA and IBF champion. He got that WBA belt by taking it off a guy via unanimous decision that I named earlier in Ricky Burns. Ndongo won the title from Ricky Burns, you know what I'm saying? So you got a couple of guys on the resume that, you know, should garner a little bit of respect at least. But nevertheless, man, he was a unified champion. He was undefeated. And it was the battle for all the marbles, man. And of course, Crawford, you know, went in there, put on a brilliant performance yet again. Stopped Ndongo with a body shot that left him in the fetal position and became undisputed and lineal junior welterweight champion of the world, to go along with, you know, his accomplishment of being the WBO and lineal champion at 135. So here we are now, starting to make a little history, you know what I'm saying? Crawford became undisputed at 140, and he didn't defend that title, so he moved up to 147 after that, and we know he had his eyes set on quite a few guys. Let's get into that. All right, so let's get into this, man. On June 9th, 2018, Crawford made a jump to the welterweight division, and he came, man, with a bang, man. He took on Jeff Horn, who was the WBO champion, fresh off a victory over none other than the great Manny Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? Had beat him out in Australia. Some people thought Pacquiao got robbed, but then you had some people I knew personally that said they went back and watched the fight, and Horn clearly won the fight. You know, Horn perceived as a big, strong guy who, you know, gave Pacquiao some problems. Some people thought he was going to do the same with Crawford, you know what I'm saying? Rough him up and give him a hard time. Horn was undefeated, 20-0. You know, big, young, strong champion. But of course, Crawford went in there, showed him he was not on, you know, on the level from a strength standpoint, from a skill standpoint, from a power standpoint, from any standpoint. Put on a dominant performance and ripped the title away from Horn via 9th round stoppage, man. He destroyed Jeff Horn and stamped his name in the welterweight division as one of the guys to be reckoned with. At this point, Crawford, you know, now if we counting, you know, WBO and lineal champion at 135, lineal and undisputed champion at 140, and now WBO champion at 147. Three division champion, you know what I'm saying? 2 division lineal champion, and 1 division undisputed. So, and of course, and the guys he had his sights set on when he first came to division world, I believe at the time, unified WBA and WBC champion Keith Thurman, and then you had, of course, Earl Spence, who had the IBF title. Now, of course, Keith Thurman was saying, oh, he need to prove himself first. He ain't proved nothing. Earl Spence said, if he get a belt, I'll give him a fight. So Crawford won his belt. He showed up to the Maurice Hooker fight with Bob Rammentoe. Saw Earl Spence and said, I got a belt, what's happening? Spence said, I can take the easy route and fight Sean Porter. Well, I'm going to fight you right now. So Crawford had to find another route, man, if he wanted to get these guys in the ring, because apparently it wasn't going to happen at that time. So let's explore the route he had to take, man, as opposed to getting in the ring with these guys. All right, so in Crawford's first defense, he took on Jose Benavidez Jr., who's the brother of David Benavidez, and, you know, a good solid contender, man. He came in with a record of 27-0, 18 knockouts. And one name on his resume that was respectable at the time when he was still up to form was Mauricio Herrera. Benavidez had a victory over him, and if you remember, Mauricio Herrera arguably beat Danny Garcia out in Puerto Rico in 2014, but didn't get the decision. But you know, Benavidez showed some good work in the early rounds with Crawford. You know, again, he caught his rhythm and timing and started separating himself. And in the last round, man, landed an uppercut that started the beginning of the end. He got Benavidez out of there in the 12th and final round, man. He scored a sensational knockout, man. And, you know, stamped his first defensive WBO title at 47. And, you know, of course, after the fight, you got people saying, oh, because Benavidez was seen as a virtuoso in his younger days as an amateur. He was you know, going to be the superstar of the family by some accounts, but he ended up getting shot in the leg or whatever the case may be, and it affected him, you know, kind of, you know, hurt him from a fight standpoint, so he wasn't what he used to be or whatever. So a lot of people started talking about, oh, Benavidez was out there on one leg, Crawford gets no credit for that or whatever. But of course, whatever the case is or was, these are the guys Crawford had to fight because he couldn't get the other champions to get in the ring with him. All these PBC guys over there hiding behind that banner. So he had to take this route, man, and fight guys that were either with top rank or with other promotional outfits that were willing to get in the ring with Crawford. So that was the first defense against Jose Benavidez. Let's get to the next one. Alright, so after stopping Amir Khan on the stool, Crawford took on Igis Kavalauskas, aka Mean Machine. And of course, this was another fight Crawford had to take in the interim while he had to wait on these guys from the PBC to be willing to get in the ring with him. Mean Machine was not a big name. He was not well known. Prior to the Crawford fight, he had to stop his victory over David Avanesian. And after the Crawford fight, he ended up, having a pretty good fight with Virgil Ortiz, and he actually dropped Ortiz in that fight. And of course, there are some, including myself, that thought Crawford was dropped in this fight, but it didn't get called a knockdown. But regardless of what it was called, Crawford came to, not to box, but to fight that night. And he kept bringing it to Kavalauskas, and he did a number on him, man, and, ended up stopping him in brilliant fashion again, and, just further stamping his name in the division, man, and trying to wait these guys out, because it had got to a point of just ridiculousness where you had PBC shows would be on. You know how you had the graphic where they would show the current champions in the division. They got to the point where they wouldn't even put Crawford's face or name up on their shows. Like the WBO belt didn't even exist. Just trying to act like he wasn't even a champion in the division to, I guess, further whatever weird way, I guess in their own way, justify the fact that all these fighters were ducking him. And they were basically protecting their fighters because I guess they knew what would happen if they put them guys in there with Terence Crawford, man. They wanted no part of them, and they were finding every reason they could. You still had guys, I think by this time, you had Earl Spence saying the 60-40, the 70-30, the 80-20. You had Spence getting up to the podium, questioning, discrediting Crawford's resume, saying he wasn't fighting nobody, and how great of matchmaker's top rank was, and how he wasn't on none of their levels. So Crawford had to keep, fighting these second-tier guys that nobody knew of because of, basically this flat-out ducking that was going on over the PBC, man. It was shameful at this point. It was getting frustrating to the real fans of boxing who wanted to see the real fights. And of course, I'm sure it was getting frustrating to Terence Crawford, man, but he kept punching through it, you know what I'm saying? And again, another guy he had put down, Igis Kavalauskas. He dominated him, stopped him, and went on to the next guy. Let's get to it. All right, so this is the part where these oiled up boys start sweating a little bit. So now we got Crawford taking on Kell Brook, the former IBF champion at 47, who had went up to fight Gennady Golovkin, got stopped, came back down, and took on Earl Spence in the title defense, and it was a pretty good fight over the first half. I had Spence actually losing halfway through the fight. I had Brook up 4-2 after 6 rounds, but of course Spence turned the heat up on Brook, kept that body attack on him, and ended up getting him out of there via 11th round stoppage, to become IBF champion and win his first title. Credit to Spence for that. And Brook, was a solid champion, very good fighter, man. Big welterweight. Of course, they fought as high at 160. They had a few fights at 54 and came back down to 47 and was taking on Crawford. And of course, due to, I guess, the hard time he gave Spence over, the first half of their fight, and his ruggedness, his power, and his boxing game as a whole, there were some publications and a lot of people that thought Crawford was getting in a dangerous fight, and some people thought Kell Brook was going to beat Crawford. I even heard some people say Crawford was going to get stopped by Kell Brook. And Kell Brook had a couple of moments early in the fight over the first couple of rounds, using his jab, and had some effect on Crawford. But out of nowhere, Crawford landed a half hook uppercut, and that was, of course, was the beginning of the end, man. He got Brook out of there in spectacular fashion yet again and stopped him. And of course, you had the oiled up crowd coming out saying, "Oh, Brook was washed up. Oh, Brook was coming back down from 54. Oh, just all kind of excuses." The constant goalpost movement, as we've seen throughout this whole little story, you know what I'm saying? And of course, Crawford didn't get the credit. But nevertheless, he scored a 4th round stoppage over Kell Brook and retained his WBO title. And now we had some common opponents to start comparing, because prior to Crawford, Brook, like I said, he gave Smith a tough fight over the first half of their fight, and he had become IBF champion by decision in Sean Porter. So we had a guy who 2 other guys, who were top guys in the division, had been in with. One was successful, one was not. And Crawford, according to the almanac, performed better against this guy than either one of those did. But it's somehow, some way, he's the only one that got 0 credit for it. Actually got discredited for it, if you want to be real. But nevertheless, he got a victory over Kell Brook. He put it on his resume. Let's get on to the next. All right, so next up, Crawford got his chance to take on the former 2-time 147-pound champion, Showtime Sean Porter, who had been in with the best of them. He had fought Keith Thurman, he had fought Danny Garcia, he had fought Kell Brook, and he had fought Earl Spence. You know what I'm saying? And every last one of them, had got a tough fight with Sean Porter. He was only victorious against Danny Garcia, but everybody else knew they had been in the fight that night. They had to pull something off down the stretch to get out of there with Sean Porter with a victory. And of course, you had some of the people that were saying, oh, this was one of the names. Now, let me back up a little bit. This is one of the names that was thrown out there. You had, again, that oiled up crowd that was trying to protect their champion. Talking about Earl Spence. Y'all know who y'all are. This is one of the names y'all threw out there. Hey, if you really want to, because of course he wasn't taking on guys according to y'all, so if you really want to make a name and quote unquote earn the opportunity to fight the great Earl Spence, he had to go through Sean Porter, because Sean Porter, he gave Spence a tough fight. I mean, there's no way Crawford could just walk through him. This is a real guy, and let y'all tell it, he was gonna put a whooping on Crawford. There was no way Crawford could whoop him, because this is how he left y'all champion looking like he stuck his head in a meat grinder. So of course, if he can leave the great Earl Spence looking like this after a tooth and nail battle, there's just no way in the world little old Terence Crawford gonna run through Sean Porter, man. Sean Porter's a big, strong welterweight. He's tested everybody's been in front of him. He's never been stopped, and there's just no way Crawford gonna be able to out-tussle him, out-rough him, out-box him. None of that. He's gonna show Crawford what this welterweight division is really all about. This gonna be his first time being in with a real fighter, according to y'all. There's just no way Crawford gonna be able to do anything with Sean Porter. If he get past Sean Porter, y'all said this. People I know that was oiled up. Y'all said this, and y'all know who y'all are. If Crawford beat Sean Porter, now I'll give him full credit. If he can beat Sean Porter, and you know what I'm saying, he'll get my respect, and he'll be able to earn that Earl Spence fight. Because I don't believe he could beat Sean Porter. If he's able to pull this off, he will get my respect. I will give him all the credit. But let's see what really happened. So on the night of the fight, man, Porter came out there, gave his usual, you know what I'm saying, movement, combinations, just trying to frustrate Crawford, and couldn't get in his head, couldn't do anything with him. And when they locked up, Crawford showed he was the stronger man in the ring, and Crawford separated himself down the stretch, first just outboxing Porter, touching him, you know what I'm saying, putting his hands on him. But there was a point before round 10 where I believe some people said it was Shakur Stevenson or somebody from ringside telling Crawford they believed he was down on the scorecards. Talked it over his corner. They told him he needed to get going. He went out there and lined up a shot he had been setting up all night. A half step back, an uppercut to the solar plex. Caught Sean Porter with it, landed on the chin, put him on his butt. Porter got up, and Crawford, walked him into a combination that put him down again, man. Porter pounded the floor. He got up, walked to the neutral corner, and Kenny Porter was up on the apron waving the flag, because there was still a bit of time left in that round, and I believe Kenny Porter knew what was going to happen, man, if he let that fight go on, man. And I guess out of love and care for his son, man, he went on and got that fight over with, man, because Crawford was getting ready to hurt him pretty bad. So he became the first man to stop Sean Porter, you know what I'm saying? And according to, Oiled Up Nation, he had earned the Earl Spence fight. So we thought. You know what I'm saying? Because the night of, I got on the live with some guys, and guys came on there eating their crow and taking their medicine and saying, "Oh man, he's truly a great fighter, this Crawford. I give him credit, man. He beat Porter, but somehow, some way, at the post-fight press conference, Sean Porter mentioned that he had, I guess before the fight, been contemplating retirement or whatever. So here come the excuse train. They say, "Oh, we don't give Crawford credit for this. Sean Porter had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He wasn't serious about boxing." So, this not a full credit fight for Crawford, man. He don't get the credit for stopping Sean Porter. Never mind the fact that Spence went tooth and nail with him and had to score a knockdown in the last round to secure the fight or whatever. We even though Crawford stopped him, the first man ever to stop him, did it in brilliant fashion. We're not giving him credit for this. Sean Porter wasn't serious about boxing. He could contemplate retirement. His head wasn't all the way in the game. So we're going to take back our credit. And we still ain't going to give Crawford credit. He still ain't proved himself. He still ain't earned the right to fight the grizzly of Spence. And you got to find something else to do, because our champion is great and he's not on the level. So still, after saying they would give Crawford credit, they took the credit back because they found whatever reason they could, just like, as you can see, they always do. So Crawford still did not get full credit for beating Sean Porter like he did. So unfortunately, he still have not won over the oiled up individuals. So let's get on to the next. So here we are, man. Finally, after one more duck, Spence going to fight Ugas and paying Stanley on the step aside money to get a third title and avoid Crawford one last time. And Crawford trying to sit down with Heyman to come to an agreement, and being unable to, he took an interim fight. We finally got the fight we were all waiting for after 5 whole years. Crawford gonna fight the great big fish, the eye doctor, all the nicknames they gave him, you know what I'm saying? He was the man amongst men, you know what I'm saying? The top guy, 147 pounds, the king of the division according to him, the big fish, you know what I'm saying? Crawford finally earned the right to grace the ring with the great big fish. There were all kind of debates, you know what I'm saying, of who was the better fighter. Spence was perceived as the bigger, stronger man. He was gonna, from the opening bell, he was gonna start walking Crawford down and commence to breaking every bone in his body. He was gonna break him mentally, physically, spiritually. You know what I'm saying? They were gonna smoke the bud, all the little things. You know what I'm saying? He had the big shag and the black Air Force Ones. EJ meant business. Crawford was in for it. You know what I'm saying? There were guys that were sure of themselves. The oil was out and flowing all over the place, man. They just knew that the moment of reckoning was here for this little skinny kid from Omaha, Nebraska, who had no business in the ring with their great champion. And let's not forget, this was seen as a matchup of 2 top 5 pound-for-pound guys, 2 undefeated champions in their physical primes, the best 2 guys at welterweight. And also, Spence brought 3 belts to the ring, WBC, WBA, and IBF. Crawford brought the WBO championship, but also the lineal title was put on the line for this fight. So whoever won this fight was going to be the lineal and undisputed champion at welterweight. Everything was on the line. And, you had a lot of people calling this 50-50. I saw it a certain way based on what I had seen throughout these years, what I knew about Spence, what I knew about Crawford. I actually went on a channel and did a breakdown about how this fight was going to go, and it ended up being exactly what happened that night. And a lot of people were surprised. I was not. You know what I'm saying? But we had finally getting the fight, man, and boxing was something we had something to be excited about again. And everything we've been looking forward to and been frustrated about for 5 years was finally going to come to fruition. All us, what you call us, bud buddies, we thought we were right. All the Earl sexual, all the oiled up individuals, they thought they were right. You know what I'm saying? So we were going to see who had been right all this time, who had been ducking who, and who was really the king of the welterweight division. It was all on the line, man. And it all went down on the fateful night of July 29th, 2023. So let's get on to get into exactly how it played out. All right, so as you can see from this picture, man, you can tell what side ended up being right and what side ended up being horribly wrong. Now, let's go back to my breakdown before the fight. Something I mentioned was because of the perception of Spence being the bigger, quote unquote, stronger man, and Crawford, in my eyes, being the guy with the more broader skill set and the bigger toolbox. I said there was going to come a moment in this fight where they would lock up with each other. You know what I'm saying? Tie up. And when they locked up, if Crawford in that moment realized he was the stronger man, I said that what was going to happen after that was something that I did not want to describe on the air. Now, for a lot of people, that moment came that they saw in round 2 when they tied up and Crawford basically pushed Spence halfway across the ring. For me, personally, that moment came, if you go back and look at the minute 30 mark in round 1. Crawford was on the ropes, and Spence was coming in trying to get to his body. Crawford locked Spence up, turned Spence around, and put him on the ropes. And I was watching the fight with my son that night. When that moment happened, I turned to my son and I said, the fight is over. Once I saw that, that was all I needed to see. And the fight basically progressed because, of course, like I said, that moment in round 2 where Crawford pushed Spence across the ring, then shortly thereafter they landed that 2-1 that dropped Spence when he was off balance in the no man's land. And from there, man, the fight progressed from where Crawford was not just winning the fight, it got to where he was beating the hell out of Errol Spence. And this went on until Harvey Dock mercifully stopped the fight in round 9 when Spence was just rendered helpless by, Crawford setting up a catch and shoot right hook that, hurt Spence bad, and then just put a combination together, man, and just caught Spence with some flush shots, and Spence couldn't defend himself, man. And Crawford, just won in dominant fashion, man. He stopped Errol Spence, had dropped him 3 times throughout the fight. That, that, like I said, the first time in round 2, and then 2 more times in round 7, which I truly believe fight should have really probably been stopped after round 7. At that point, the competition had been decided, as far as I'm concerned, and anything else was just unnecessary damage for Spence to be taken. But Crawford definitely left no doubt, man. The competition had been decided. There was no question who was the king of the division. Now, if we're counting, let's go back. 135, WBO lineal champion. 140, lineal undisputed champion. 147, lineal and undisputed champion. So he's now a 3-division champion, 3-division lineal champion, and a 2-division undisputed champion. So you would think at this point, you would hear people. Now, of course, that night you had people coming on, went on the live that night, you know what I'm saying? So people on there, again, eating their crow and taking their medicine. I heard people say Terence Crawford the greatest fighter ever seen in their life. Some people were saying that was the worst whooping they've ever seen of a fighter of that caliber, which I agree. And, Crawford, was the man, basically. There was no more doubt, you know what I'm saying? He went in there's no excuses. Errol Spence made no excuses. He said Crawford was the better man that night, and he gave him all his props, man. But as usual, you know what I'm saying? There was some things that came up after the fight, you know what I'm saying? There was, Spence, they went back to the car wreck. Spence wasn't himself, you know what I'm saying? He had broken ribs in training camp that he had sustained and fought forward with the broken ribs, and there was turmoil and just anything they could come up with, man. Anything they could come up with. And it was just the same, more of the same, but just, of course, beforehand, Crawford, because I don't think there's no way he's going to beat this guy. If he can beat him, I give him full credit. First they give him credit, but then they go back and backtrack and find any reason they can not to, because there was no way that Crawford could beat the great champion, on the level playing field. Spence was weight drained. He was in Las Vegas the week of the fight, doing road work in 100-degree heat, as if any other fighter that's went to Vegas in the summertime before a fight hadn't done the same thing. Had went up to Mount Charleston and ran miles. Haven't got out in the heat and ran. Vegas is a hot place. You know what I'm saying? Just like any other training camp fighters go to certain locations, they go there for the grueling conditions to condition their bodies to be ready for battle. You know what I'm saying? So it was just more excuses, man. And let these guys tell it. Errol Spence walking around Dallas is basically looking like this. You know what I'm saying? Like a man in the 70s walking around with his back broke down and broken ribs, cataracts, busted eye sockets. He had no business, in hindsight, being in the ring with Terence Crawford. He was a shock fighter. He was a shell of himself. He turned out he was a bum by some accounts. You know what I'm saying? You had all kind of stuff coming up, man. They want to give first. They're going to give Crawford credit because he has there's no way he's going to beat this great champion. And when he goes out there and makes it look easy as he did, there's got to be something wrong. There's no way this guy is this good. There's just no way. He is on something. Something is not right. Are his gloves loaded? How is he stacking the deck against our guy? How does he keep doing this? There has to be something he's doing wrong. He cannot be this good. I just can't give this man credit. Spence, I saw what he did to these other guys, these other great champions. He ran through these guys with no problem. You know what I'm saying? He ran through Danny Garcia off the car wreck. He beat Sean Porter, dropped Sean Porter. He went over there into England and stopped Kell Brook. You know what I'm saying? He made Leonard Bundu eyes roll up in his head. You know what I'm saying? He destroyed Chris Algieri. You know what I'm saying? He was the big fish. This wasn't supposed to happen. He broke Ugas' eye socket. You know what I'm saying? He's the man, the big fish, the king of the division. There's no way Crawford is this much better than this man. I just cannot give him full credit. So I'm going to say my champion was broken down from this car wreck. He was never the same. And that Crawford fought him before, Spence would have won. We're going to go with that. So Spence, he fought a broke down, shot one version of Earl Spence. So even though I said before the fight I still can't give this man credit. He still is just an average fighter who's overhyped by the media and his fan base. Crawford ain't that good, and we standing on that, man. That's just what it is. So that's what you have from the oiled up boys, man. Even though Crawford had all these accolades, even though he had went in there and earned everything in the ring, ran through all these great champions. You know what I'm saying? 11 straight fights ended in knockouts, you know what I'm saying, since the Pole Stole fight up to this fight. Still no credit, man. Still no credit. So, I'm pretty sure everybody noticing a pattern here. So, still no credit for the Spence fight. Let's get on to the next thing. So, next up, we had Crawford moving up to the 154-pound division, taking on the WBA champion, Israel Madrimov. Now, of course, you had a certain group of folks that was like, oh, Madrimov, we never heard of him, so we're going to call him sorry. Madrimov didn't have a lot of professional fights. He was 10-1 at the time. He had become a world champion. You could see he was highly skilled. I had seen him before in showcase night they had heard to put on back in 2021. It was Madrimov, I believe, Guyashoff, and another guy they called White Chocolate. Madrimov was the headliner, and he looked very impressive. The moment I saw that Crawford was fighting this guy, like, man, it's going to be a tough fight. But, of course, you had some people that was, of course, as usual, downplaying everything Crawford does and saying he's not fighting nobody. But Madrimov, aside from his pro record, you know what I'm saying, he's one of these guys that are highly touted as an amateur, and they come in the pros and they get fast tracked. As evidence of this, let's take a look at what Madrimov did as an amateur. Now, as you can see here, Madrimov was a veteran of 370 amateur fights. He had a record of 350 wins and 20 losses. Was a 2018 Asian Games gold medalist, 2017 Asian Championships gold medalist, and won multiple national championships in his home country, Uzbekistan. Now, some people might look at that and say, maybe his country don't have a lot of great fighters. Maybe, he did that over there or whatever. But it's regardless of that, what anybody might think or whatever. I mean, he was a multiple-time national champion in his country, and he was, won multiple championships on his continent. You know what I'm saying? He don't have an Olympic hardware, but I mean, it's not hard to see that this man was a top-level amateur, and he got fast-tracked as a pro. Evidenced by the fact that he was a champion, already a champion in 11 fights in his pro career, man. That's saying something. Let's compare him to another guy that y'all might know a little bit about. Now, I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with the name Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, as an amateur, had 90 fights, had a record of 84-6. And like Madrimov, he was a multiple-time national champion. The one thing he had Madrimov did not have was an Olympic medal. But as you can see, man, 370 fights compared to 90 for a guy who we all can probably agree was an all-time great. You know what I'm saying? So Madrimov, again, a lot of these guys gain a lot of experience in the amateurs and they come over here and get fast-tracked to a title. Look at Lomachenko. Look at Guillermo Rigondeaux, a lot of these Cuban guys come over here, a lot of these Eastern European guys. Majimov fits that bill. He's from Uzbekistan. So that's what it was with him, man. And like I said, I knew beforehand he would give Crawford a tough fight, and it turned out to be just that. All right, so the fight took place on August 3rd, 2024. You know, the fight started off kind of as a chess match, guys jockeying for foot position and a lot of feints, foot feints, head feints, and you know, it first half of the fight was a lot of back and forth. Majimov had some good moments. He landed some shots on Crawford, more than a lot of people are used to seeing. You know what I'm saying? But Crawford got his distance and timing down and started basically walking Majimov down, man, and landing a combination, going to the body and making it a little rough on Majimov and breaking him down. And won what I considered at the time to be an 8-4 decision. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it was one of those type of fights where you see a guy get hit a little more than usual. You got people that's actually convinced that he lost or, you know, barely won or whatever. I mean, it was a good fight. You know, Majimov was a good fighter. It was another style for Crawford to have to figure out. You know, that's the thing with boxing. If you fighting, you know, different guys with different styles, you're not gonna be able to figure everybody out the same way. Everybody's timing not the same. Everybody's cadence or whatever the case may be is not the same. So, you know, Crawford showed his elite skill set in figuring Majimov out. Hurt him to the body a couple times and won a decision down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? Again, if we're counting, 135 WBO lineal, 140 lineal and undisputed, 147 lineal and undisputed, and now 154 WBA champion. You know what I'm saying? So now we got a 4-division champion, 3-time lineal, 2-time undisputed. So everybody's asking what's next for Crawford, and of course, you know, you got the crowd that's saying Crawford ain't, you know, I'm not impressed. He barely beat Majimov. His power didn't carry up. He got hit too much. He's looking old. I don't know what he needs. You know, there's no way he can go up and do anything else. I don't even know if he could beat any of these other champions at 54. Majimov only had 11 fights. He wasn't supposed to be on Crawford level. And Crawford had a hard time with him. He barely beat him. I don't see Crawford beating nobody above 54. He better stay away from 60, 68. He better be careful of who he pick and choose to fight at 54, man, because it's gonna be a rough sledding for him. I wasn't impressed with his victory. He barely escaped, you know, by the skin of his teeth, and I just don't see Crawford doing too much at that division or anything above it, man. I just don't see it. That's what they were saying. But yet again, when Crawford heard that, he got to prove you wrong. So let's get to the next thing. All right, so now for the grand finale. So after, you know, rumors here and there and different interviews and speaking things into existence, we finally got a mega showdown for Terence Crawford, man. He's going to take on fellow first ballot Hall of Famer, 4-division champion, 2-time undisputed 168 champion, the current undisputed 168 champion, the cash cow in the face of boxing, the king of boxing, and the guy, in my opinion, that has the best resume of any active fighter in the sport today, in Canelo Alvarez. And if y'all remember, this was the fight back when Earl Spence was on his run of ducking, basically. It's one of the fights he was trying to pander for. He wanted the Canelo Alvarez fight, and his fan base wanted it for him. But along with whooping him out the Hall of Fame, Crawford also took this fight from him. So they were pretty upset about it, I'm sure of it. And it based on what a lot of them were saying before the fight. Some of them I knew directly that was saying Crawford didn't have, and I quote, a mustard seed chance of winning this fight. He had what they called a puncher's chance. He had no chance of winning this fight. He was too little. Canelo was gonna just, you know, walk him down, same as Spence pretty much, and just break every bone in his body. He was too big, too strong, too much power for Crawford to deal with. Crawford was gonna just not be able to keep his composure once he started feeling the bone-shaking power of Canelo Alvarez. Because, you know, he's just too, when you look at their bodies, I guess, Canelo was just too much bigger than Crawford. He's been in there with bigger guys because he's the bigger, stronger man, and he punches harder. Crawford had zero chance of beating him. Zero chance, I tell you, is what they were saying. No matter what Crawford did, he could come out and try to do this and do that. They had all the cliches, you know what I'm saying? A great big man always beats a great little man. You know what I'm saying? They have weight classes for a reason. You know, all the little cliches and sayings, all the little popular ones. Crawford just had no chance to win this fight. But also the other thing, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, just like before the Sean Porter fight, just like before the Earl Spence fight, the one thing they said was this: because I have no confidence in Terence Crawford's ability to win this fight, if by some lucky chance he does win this fight, I will give him, and I quote, full credit. I will give him full credit if he could somehow get in that ring and beat the great Canelo Alvarez, because he has no business in the ring with this man. Canelo is going to destroy him, and I'm sure of it. Crawford is not going to let this fight. I'll be surprised if it goes halfway. Crawford's going to get stopped, and he's going to get stopped brutally. I can't wait to see it, and he's going to finally get what's coming to him. Canelo's going to do it for us. You know what I'm saying? We're going to hitch our wagon to Canelo Alvarez. Since our great champion couldn't do it, somebody got to do it. I'm tired of this skinny kid from Omaha, Nebraska. I've seen enough of him. Somebody got to stop this mess. Canelo Alvarez is just the man to do it. There are, and I quote, levels to this, they said. Crawford not on the level of Canelo Alvarez. He's not ready for that big crowd. He's not ready for this pressure. He's not ready for this power. And he's just not on the level of Canelo Alvarez. This is all a farce. His resume sucks. He's fought nobody. Everybody's been compromised, out of their prime, or something been wrong, weight drain, or something. He's done something to hedge his bets on these fights. There's no way on a level playing field with no catch weight, with no rehydration clause, at full strength in Canelo's best weight division, which he was undefeated in, mind you. Dominant, you know what I'm saying? 2-time undisputed. Didn't lose his other belt in the ring, the IBF belt, when they stripped him and gave it the score. There's just no way Crawford's going to get in there and beat Canelo Alvarez. This has to be a money grab, a retirement fight. Crawford just giving us a farewell fight. He want to make a lot of money on his way out. He's willing to get knocked out to do it. I'm sure of it. There's no way he's going to beat Canelo Alvarez. But if by some chance he does, I will give him full credit, is what they said. And I knew this. I seen this fight as a challenge. These are my two favorite active fighters. You know what I'm saying? But I was not part of the crowd saying Crawford had no chance. I personally predicted Crawford to win this fight by decision. You can go check my pre-fight breakdown. It says exactly what I thought was going to happen. And like before, it pretty much played out like I said it would. But let's see about what really went down in this fight. Alright, so the night of the fight, man, September 13th, 2025, Crawford went out there with Canelo, man, and weathered the early storm, and got comfortable and put on a boxing clinic, a virtuoso performance, man, and was getting the better of the work and standing inside, trading with Canelo, using the jab, splitting the guard, uppercuts, catch and shoot, counter, everything in the book, man. It was just a brilliant performance under the circumstances, and Canelo brought his A game. He brought the best Canelo Alvarez he could bring under the circumstances, but it just was not enough for the great Terence Crawford, man. So Crawford did what many thought he could not do: moved up 2 weight divisions, took on the bona fide champion, man, and won in convincing fashion, man. It became, if you're counting, 5-division world champion, 4-division lineal champion, 3-division undisputed champion, first man in the 4-belt era. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you had the crowd that was saying beforehand, like I said, if Crawford can do this, because there's no way I think he can do this, I'll give him full credit. But that was the talk of the time before the fight. But after the fight, as usual, it's always something they come up with to discredit this man. I don't know what he's done to these people, but for whatever reason, they just don't want to give this man his credit under any circumstances, man. I mean, he moved up 2 weight classes, beat the man they thought he couldn't beat, had no catch weight, no rehydration clause. Whatever Canelo weighed on fight night, he weighed. came in there at full strength. This is Canelo's optimal weight division. He had never been defeated in this weight class. He got in there with Terence Crawford, man, just a whole nother ball game. Just like everything else, Terence Crawford once again showed he is on a whole nother level. And this time he was against a fellow first ballot Hall of Famer, a fellow at the time 4 division champion, and a multiple time undisputed champion. You know what I'm saying? A multiple time lineal champion. Canelo has all the accolades. His resume, like I said, is the best of any active fighter in boxing. And Crawford just showed that regardless of any of that, man, he's on a whole nother level. And the same people that said they would give him credit if he won this fight, they thought he could not win, like many others, but even more so pronounced this time because of the perceived size of power differential. Crawford still overcame that to win in dominant fashion, man. And still, here we are again. So now this is the full circle moment. So let's go back to the very beginning. All right, so now here we go again. Terence Crawford sits on top of the hill, man, as the king of boxing. He just beat the king of boxing. He takes over the title. You know what I'm saying? He is untied, unblemished in 42 fights, man. I mean, he's a 5-division world champion, a 4-division lineal champion, a 3-division undisputed champion. I mean, the man has never even had a split decision before. I mean, he's been completely dominant, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the way he ran through the welterweight division. Just to go through all these weight classes and making guys look like just separating themselves every step of the way, man. It's asserting his dominance. To making guys who were dominant champions look normal in the ring with him, look like they're nowhere near his level. It's brilliant work to see, man, and it just sucks that people don't appreciate what they're seeing. And I think it's gonna be similar to guys like Ali and Mayweather, where a lot of people ain't gonna really appreciate him until he's done. You know what I'm saying? When they want to look back and see his body of work, what he did, and we did it too. You know what I'm saying? Maybe then they'll appreciate it once they realize how hard it was to accomplish what he accomplished, especially in this age of boxing, with the politics, with the promotional outfits and things of that nature. Because I mean, think about it. I mean, he had to wait at welterweight. He had to wait 5 years just because all the other champions, all the other belts were always over the PBC, and they did everything they could to play keep away with this man for 5 years. And when you look at him, when you look at Terence Crawford, in my opinion, when you look at him amongst the court, because of course now he's in the conversation with the all-time greats, which is where he clearly belongs. The one thing I think that will hurt him, I mean, of course you'll have some people that'll look at what he did and they'll realize, hey, they'll cut him some slack based on what he did, and because it's clear to see now he's been ducked. But the thing that would hurt him, I think, in some fronts would be just basically the lack of opportunity, man. Because you look at some other guys, like the name you hear popular now because of this now is Floyd Mayweather, another fellow 5-division world champion who also was an all-time great by most accounts. For comparison's sake, Floyd Mayweather's first big pay-per-view fight against Arturo Gatti, Mayweather was 28 years old. Terence Crawford's first big pay-per-view fight with Earl Spence, he was 35. Mayweather's fight against, at the time, the cash cow, Oscar De La Hoya, Mayweather was 30 years old. Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, cash cow boxing. Terence Crawford was 2 weeks away from his 38th birthday. So hopefully that can help paint a picture as to, why, some people might view Terence Crawford as not as high up as some might see him when it comes to ranking him with the all-time greats, the immortals and the icons of the sport throughout the history of it. But, of course you have to put respect on his name, and there is no doubting that after this, because previously on my personal pound for pound list, I did have Usyk #1 prior to this fight because of a combination of Crawford's inactivity, fighting once a year, and also out of respect for what Usyk had done, because that's nothing to sneeze at also, going up there to heavyweight, running through Joshua twice, Fury twice, Dubois twice. So basically wiped out all of England as far as their elite, their top heavyweights. You know what I'm saying? Ran through them like a hot knife through butter. So you had to respect that. But with this fight, man, Crawford is cemented as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world in my eyes until he announces his retirement. Just period. And then also the other thing is, because we are in the next era after Mayweather and Pacquiao, even though Pacquiao recently came back. Of course, this is not his era. So we're after that era, and this era was, if you ask me, down to two men. In my opinion, you had, of course, because just like everything else, you got a lineage. You know what I'm saying? You had the cash cow of the previous era, which was, first it was De La Hoya, and that passed on to Mayweather once he took that title in the ring. When Mayweather retired, basically Canelo inherited the cash cow title and also the big weekends of Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence weekend after Mayweather retired. Crawford, if he chooses to fight on, the question is, will he be the new cash cow due to him beating Canelo Alvarez? That's yet to be seen. Or if he'll even fight on, because me personally, I don't know what's left for him to do that's within reason as far as proving anything. But it's just the question of how he'll move forward, if he does choose to move forward. But the other thing is he's cementing himself as the top fighter of this era, period, post Mayweather Pacquiao, along with now his name being in the conversation along with the all-time greats of throughout, the history of the sport. You got to mention them in the same breaths with guys like, of course, Floyd Mayweather, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, you know what I'm saying, and many, Sam Langford, many others. Because Crawford has been ducked, man, that's clear now, that should be clear. He got ducked heavily at welterweight, and they basically robbed him of opportunities, man. He still didn't get to fight a lot of them guys there, and then just like I said, the 5 years he had to wait. Just imagine what we could have gotten had they went on and made them fights and moved forward with the sport instead of holding it up. But nevertheless, man, we got some brilliant performances from Crawford. I'm appreciative of it, man, and if he fights again, I'll definitely be tuning in. But it just sucks now that you got this particular crowd, man, that was saying, if he beat Canelo, we'll give him full credit. But here we are now. What are they saying? Canelo was washed up. He wasn't himself. He was a shell. He was slow, shot worn. He been in too many wars. He ain't got no speed. He don't throw a combination no more. He just ain't himself no more. That wasn't the best version of Canelo he beat that night. Then you got his other crowd saying that. So that proves nothing. If he really want to prove himself, he need to go up to 75. He need to fight David Benavidez. That's the guy he need to take on. Then if he do that, then I'll give him credit. But I don't give him credit for Canelo Alvarez. That was a shot-worn, washed-up version of Canelo. He ain't getting credit for that. He need to fight Benavidez. So that just lets me know, man, it's always going to be the next guy. It's always going to be the next thing. And all y'all saying y'all give him credit, y'all never will, man. Y'all never will, man. Just quit the line. You know what I'm saying? Just admit you hate Crawford for whatever reason. He whooped your champion, or he stepped on your tennis shoe, or whatever he did to you. You got it out for him. But regardless, you ain't seen him been whooped in the ring, and you want him to keep going up and wait until it's finally too big for him, so you can get in your eyes what's coming for him. But it's just a shame, man. People don't appreciate greatness sometimes, I guess. But this guy's giving us nothing but that. He's earned everything in the ring. He ain't took no shortcuts. The man was blackballed, overcame that. And that night he whooped Spence, he didn't just whoop Spence. He also whooped the politics of boxing that night. Because the machine was against him, and he knocked all of it out the park, man. And nobody could say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Again, like I said, this fight against Canelo was against all odds, man. There was a lot of people, a lot of experienced trainers, a lot of experienced fighters that thought he was taking on just too much in Canelo. They thought he was just too big, too powerful, too strong, man, because Canelo had been taming a lot of guys early in these fights at 68, dominating, basically going on cruise control, coasting to decisions easily, if not, stopping these guys like he was on his run in 2021 and ran through the division originally. But Crawford is, like I said, he's one of them guys, man, that come along every so often, maybe every 30 to 40 years, you know what I'm saying, that we don't get to see a lot of. I'm just glad I got to see him during my lifetime. You know, I can say I lived through the days of Terence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and even Canelo Alvarez, man. He was a great champion, you know what I'm saying? Man ain't got nothing to hang his head about. He did a lot for the sport too, but people need to give Terence Crawford his credit, man, and acknowledge what this man did for the sport of boxing. Because you don't see these guys nowadays wanting all the smoke and actually going out there and bagging up what they say. Crawford is doing that, man. And it's pure greatness right before us, man. So, with all that said, man, all y'all haters, man, y'all keep doing y'all job, man. Y'all good at it, but y'all ain't gonna get nowhere with it, man. This man is great. And even if he choose to fight again, I'm pretty sure he'll put on another show, man, and y'all get right back to y'all hate. And trying to conjure up the next man to beat him or whatever y'all think should happen. But regardless of that, man, Crawford is great. He's the king of this era, and he's the king of boxing. Y'all can't stand it, and I'm glad about that. But that's all I got, man. Put it down in the comments, whatever y'all think. Y'all agree with me, or am I full of it, man? But I'll be looking forward to it. Y'all take it light.